Hi everyone, welcome to my channel Humble House. If you follow me, you know I haven't been here for a while. I know. After moving to a different state, it just has been quite an adjustment. But here we are, and I have this gorgeous blanket for you. It is done with a Japanese stitch. It's like a fan pattern. You can use it for all kinds of projects. Here today, we are going to be making a blanket. Let me show you. This is what it looks like in the front. I have used 2 different yarns. And then the back of it will look like this. And then if you do decide to use several different yarns or colors, your sides, you're going to have these threads right here, but you're going to work those into the edge at the end. So let me get started and let me tell you what you're going to need for this project. If you want to do the exact same one, I'm going to show you what I used. The first one is this Bernat Bundle Up by Yarnspirations. It is 100% polyester. The color I used is Nighttime. It is a medium 4 weight. The recommended hook size is a 5.5 millimeter. For the blanket that I am making, which I will tell you the dimensions in a moment, I used up 2 of these skeins. These are 8.8 ounces or 250 grams. And then the other one is this Karen Latte Cakes by Yarnspirations. I love this yarn. I love working with it. It's one of my favorites. The color for this one is Blackberry. It is a bulky 5. The recommended hook size is a 6.5 millimeter. It is 58% acrylic and 42% nylon, also 8.8 ounces or 250 grams. Now, as you see, the recommended hook sizes for both of these are different. So I have decided to pick one that is in between the 2, which is the size 6 millimeters or a size J for my crochet hook. You will also need a pair of scissors, a yarn needle to thread in the loose ends at the end, and I always like to have measuring tape on hand. Before we get started, a couple of things you need to keep in mind when doing this stitch. You must work in multiples of 12. Whatever width of blanket that you decide to make, you need to count in multiples of 12. So whatever number you end up with, you need to add 4 chains to that. Okay, so for example, for this blanket, I have 132 chains, and then I'm going to add 4 chains at the end. That's going to give me 136 chains that I need to start with. I am only going to make a swatch to show you how to do this stitch and obviously the edging for the blanket. In the swatch, I am also going to show you how to do a color switch. Alright, let's start with a slip knot. So take whatever yarn you're using, take whichever yarn you're going to begin with, and then lay it flat like this. Make a loop a little bit wider. Now take your hook, insert it into that middle part of your loop, go under the loop, and then grab a hold of that loose end, and you're going to carefully sort of pull it into that circle, but not all the way, because you want to grab a hold of these 2 ends. Okay, and when you have that, then you pull in opposite directions. There you go. Now pull on the loose end and adjust that slip knot onto your hook, not too tight and not too loose. So for this swatch, I am going to do 24 chains. So like I said, this is just a sample, and then you can use the stitch on whatever you like. Start with 24 chains. The way you chain is you yarn over, kind of twist, and pull through that loop that was on your hook. So that's your first chain. Again, yarn over, twist, and pull through. That's 2 chains. The more you practice, the better you'll get at getting those chains pretty even. So let me do 24 of these chains. There I have 24 chains. So it was, 2 times 12, so that's 24. Now I am going to add 4 chains to this number. 1, 2, 3, and 4. That gives me a total of 28 chains. Like I said, whatever number that you come up with, so like with my blanket, which I had 132 chains, you add 4 at the end, only here in this foundation chain. Now here I have 28. Okay, so from my hook, I'm going to count backwards. So here's that first chain. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And then on this 5th chain is where I will start my first double crochet. Right, so you yarn over, insert your hook, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through the first 2 loops, yarn over, pull through the last 2 loops. Then we go onto the next chain, so yarn over, insert my hook, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through the first 2 loops, yarn over, pull through the last 2 loops, and repeating these double crochets until you get to the other side. I will meet you right there. Here I am almost at the end. Here's my last chain. So I'm going to work that last double crochet in there. So you started with 24 chains, or whatever number you had, you added 4, so I have 28. And now on my way back, I have 25 double crochets for this first row for this swatch. Now let's continue on to row number 2. You are going to chain 3. 1, 2, and 3. Now you're going to turn your work, and the even rows are always the tricky ones. The odd ones are easy because it's just double crochets. I mean, the even ones are also double crochets, but that's when we get into those details. This chain of 3 belongs to this double crochet down here. That means for the next double crochet, we need to go into the one that's right next to that. And you now have 2 loops from every stitch, so you want to work through both of those. Let me show you close up. You're going to work through those 2. Right there. All right, so double crochet. If you count the chain of 3, this is 1, then this is your second double crochet, and now we do a third double crochet into that next stitch. That's how you're going to always start your even rows. You need 3 double crochets at the beginning, counting that chain of 3. 1, 2, and 3. So this is where you need to have patience. I know. I'm going to try to show it to you as best as I can. It's easy to count on the bottom row, so you count 1, 2, and 3. So those are those 3 top ones that you also did. And now you count 1, 2, 3, and on this 4th double crochet, let me get close up, has that top part, middle part, and bottom. And then we need to do a long double crochet into this bottom part and work through there. On this side, on the right side of that double crochet stitch, and then you're going to work on the left side of that double crochet stitch. So let's do that first stitch, and I'm going to leave it close up so that it'll be easier for you to see. Let's count again from where you left off. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, 1, 2, 3. And then in this fourth one, you're going to yarn over, go in through the bottom, and then through the right side of that stitch, you're going to yarn over, pull up a loop, but a long loop, then yarn over, pull through the first 2 loops, yarn over, pull through the last 2 loops. All right, now we need to work behind this long stitch. As you can see here, we have those 3 double crochets. Now we need to skip a stitch. That means this one, where I have the needle in. You're going to skip that one completely, and you're going to work a double crochet into the one right next to that one. Now it's not easy because this is covering and it's sometimes hard to see. So you're going to yarn over. Now if you open this up, so this is the one that you want to skip, and then you're going to work into this next one. So insert your hook at the very top through those 2 loops, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2 loops, yarn over, pull through the last 2 loops. So very important that you don't forget to skip this stitch that I showed you. Okay, now here at this top, this would be considered, after that long double crochet, this would be considered your first double crochet, and we need 5 in total. So go ahead and do 5. So that was 1, then in the next one, 4 and 5, like that. Okay, now we need another long double crochet, once again into this stitch right here where we did the first one. So you will be going in through the bottom part and then working on the left side of it. So your left side. So let's yarn over, go all the way down there, through that little loop, yarn over, pull up a long loop, so you just kind of have to pull it a bit, then yarn over, pull through the first 2 loops, yarn over, pull through the last 2 loops. You did it. If you see where you went into that last double crochet at the top, after that stitch you're going to skip a stitch. So the one I have my fingers on right here, you're going to skip that one, then you will work a double crochet into this one right here. So as you can tell, before this detail you skip a stitch, and after the detail you skip a stitch. It's very important. At the end of the row you will know if you forgot to skip one or not. I will show you what that means when I get to the end of the row. So we need to make, now we continue to make 5 double crochets in total here at the top. There are my 5 double crochets. So you have to make sure that you know which bottom stitch corresponds to the top ones. This one belongs to this. So now I'm going to skip 1, 2, 3, and I'm going to work into this 4th one right through here and do a long double crochet. So yarn over, insert through that right side, and do a long double crochet. Once again, I need to make sure that I skip. So after that last double crochet in here, remember to skip that first one and then work your first double crochet in here. So yarn over, pull this forward. Don't get confused as to where to go into. I need to go in here. One. Now I need to make a total of 5 double crochets at the top. Now I go back with a long double crochet and I am going to go through here. So let's do that. It's definitely very easy to get a bit confused as to where you need to insert your hook. So you need to be very observant. Now remember how I told you that you would know at the end of the row if you skipped the right amount of stitches? Let me show you how. So you finished this second, so you're almost at the end of your row, whichever row you're making. This is going to be the same for every row. So you work that last stitch at the top in there. Now you're going to skip this one. And then you should always have 3 left. So 1, 2, and 3. So with the chain at the top of that chain of 3, that's your 3rd one. That's how you know you didn't mess up here at the if you have more left, that means you did something wrong. You forgot maybe to skip one, or you skipped too many, or something happened and you need to go back. Once again, I worked in there, I skipped this one, and now I have 1, 2, and 3 left. And I know that 3rd one, it appears almost like, oh, I'm over, like, it appears almost like you're done, like you have nowhere to work into, but just by looking at the bottom, the previous row, you know, you still need one in here. And it's just at that very top corner. Sometimes it's a little hard to get in there. And do that last double crochet in there. There you have your first 2 rows. It is now simply a repetition from this, but let me just show you. Let me go and do rows 3 and 4. So let's chain 3 again. 1, 2, 3. Turn your work. Remember that these chains line up with this bottom one, so you need to go into the next one. Don't get confused, don't go in here, because this one belongs to these chains. Right into the next one. And you go through both loops. So row number 3 is just double crochets. There's nothing fancy you need to do there. Like I said, it's just a repetition. I am just making 2 more rows, and then I will show you how to switch yarns or colors if that's what you wanted to do. I went ahead and did row number 4, just the repetition of row number 2 basically. Now I just wanted to show you how to switch yarns or colors if you're using the same yarn but maybe a different color, or if you're using a different yarn, this is how you would go about. So just finish your row as usual and then take your new yarn. You make sort of like a little loop, or like you double it like this, then hold on up here to where you form that little loop. Now you're going to pull that through the loop that was on your hook, like so. Now you want to pull on the old color, or the old yarn, the previous yarn I should say, because it's not old. And now make sure you don't take the loose end, of course. You don't want to be working with this loose end. Leave the loose end to the side. And then while you're pulling on the previous yarn and the loose end, you are going to chain 3. 1, 2, and 3. And that's it. You've switched yarns. Now turn your work. Remember, this is that first row, and you will be working in here. Do that first double crochet in there with your new yarn, and you're all set. This is row number 5. Remember the odd ones are all double crochets all the way to the end of your row. And don't worry about this. If you're going to be using this yarn again, do not cut it off. Just leave it here, and I will show you how to pull it up. Okay, after I'm done with these 2 rows, with rows 5 and 6, I will show you how to pull up the previous yarn so that you don't have to be cutting and adding the yarn. You can if you want to, of course. Either way, you're going to have to work them in or thread them in. But I prefer the look of working it in because you can hardly see them, and then if you cut them off, they start coming out after a while, of course, after a lot of use, or if you wash it. That's just how it is. So the less cuts that I have, the better. Just wanted to make sure that I mention this again. Do not forget to work into this stitch, that row of 3 chains, even though it looks like you're done, okay, because otherwise you'll be missing a stitch. So, and I know it's hard. It doesn't look like there's a stitch, but just be aware. And if you're using a fluffy yarn like me, be very, very careful also at the beginning of each row, of each even row, to count correctly those first 3, 1, 2, 3, okay, and then start with the detail. I finished row number 6. Now I can show you how to pull up the previous yarn in case you're switching colors back to the previous one. So all you do is you pull this one up. Don't pull it too tight, okay, because if you pull too tight, then this will start scrunching up like that. You want to just make sure that it's the length of these rows, and then gently use it as if it was the yarn that you're working with. You're just going to yarn over and pull through that loop, so to create that chain. Then pull on the one that you were working with, and then start your 3 chains. 1, 2, and 3, and that's it. Turn your work and continue as usual. And you can do this as many times as you like, no matter how many rows you have. If you know that you're not going to be using any of the yarns anymore, you can always cut them off. And let's assume that you're at the end of your blanket. You did that last stitch with whichever color that you finished with, or whichever yarn that you finished with. You want to chain 1, and for every row, because these are double crochets, we are going to do 4 single crochets into every pair of rows. So you know, the odd and the even one. So I count this as a set. So you want to do 4 single crochets here, 4 here, 4 here, and so on. That way you have the same amount of stitches on one side as on the other if you're counting along. And you just kind of have to wing it as to where you need to insert your hook because of these chains. So like I said, I need 4 single crochets. Insert your hook. Yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull up a loop. Okay, now I move on to the next color. Obviously you can cut this off if you're not using it anymore. Just gonna leave it on right now. This is where you need to work this loose end into those stitches. So you see, now I work that in. You can't even see it anymore. This one, don't worry about it, that loose end, the one that's cut off, because we're going to thread that into our work at the end. I've reached the corner. In every corner, you're going to single crochet 2 into that same stitch. That just rounds off that corner. And then you continue with single crochets all along this side until you get to the other corner. When you reach a space like this, all you do is you work into the space. And that's it. When you are done with that, you can repeat another round of that or just leave it as it is. All right, lovely people of the world out there. I have finished the border. I'm showing it to you on the actual blanket and not on the swatch anymore. It's just kind of hard to get the full blanket in here because it's pretty big. It's about 44 inches long. So here's that first edge, that first border that you did with the single crochet, and I come back around and I also did 2 single crochets into that same stitch like the other one. Now you have options. You can leave it as it is, just this one row of single crochets. You can go back and do another round of single crochets if you like. Just don't forget to do 2 single crochets in the corners. And you have the other option, which is the one I'm going to do. It's called the corded edging. It's very easy, nothing to it. So I'm going to show you how you would do it. Now, if you were to just finish right here, let me just show you that first. So in case you want to be done already. I know I get a little anxious when I'm finishing the border and I just want to get done with the project. So this was your first single crochet where you started the border. All you do is you go through it and then you pull up a loop and you pull that same loop through the one that is on your hook. Now you would cut off this yarn somewhere here maybe. Then you would pull it through. Okay, I'm obviously not going to cut it off because I'm going to continue. But you would cut it off, pull it through, and then with the yarn needle, we would work that into these stitches. So I will show you. If you know how to do that, then that's perfectly fine. If you don't, then skip forward a little bit so I can show you once I finish that corded edging, and I'll show you how I thread in those loose ends. Okay, but if you are going to do the corded edging like me, then this is what you're going to do. we are going to join into this into this first stitch from the previous, from where we started. So you're just going to single crochet into it. Now you're going to chain one. Now I'm going to get closer so you can see, instead of turning your work or working to the left, we are going to work to the right, so backwards. So we're not going to turn our work. So you have that chain. This would be your first stitch right here. So you're going to single crochet into this stitch. Let me show you. It's sort of counterintuitive. You're going to go through those loops, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2 loops. Okay, so you just worked into this stitch right there. Now you continue to the next stitch and do the same thing. So you're in through those 2 loops, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through. You can always see the one that you worked into because it's kind of pulled up. So that's the one you just worked into. And now we continue on to the next one. If you're not using the fluffy yarn, it's going to be a lot easier for you to see. Go in there and do your single crochet. And then the next one, and so on. This is how you continue to do the edge for this blanket, if that's what you like. I think it just gives it a nice little, it gives it some texture and it looks pretty. Especially my daughter, she has some sensory needs, and this would be great because she can just kind of play with this whenever she cozies up with her blanket. That is also another reason why I like to use different yarns. So if you have a child with sensory needs, it's nice for them to touch all the different materials. The softness, some are a little bit more, especially the cotton yarn is a little bit harder. These 2 are pretty soft. Let me zoom back in. I think it's quite nice. I'm going to go all the way around, and in the corners I am not going to do a double stitch of that. I am just simply going to follow the stitches that I already have until I come back to this corner. I am done with all my edging. I went around and now I am here at this corner where we started. It's hard to see, I know, with this fluffy yarn, but this is that first stitch that I started, where I started going backwards. So I am going to insert my hook through here and just simply do a slip stitch. So I start off as if I was going to do a regular single crochet, and then I yarn over, pull it through all the parts that are on my hook. It just kind of twisted. Sorry. There we go. It's a little hard because it's going backwards, so it's not as intuitive. And now I am going to cut it off. And this is that same thing that you would be doing if you only did one, the border of the single crochets. If you only did that, then you would just cut it off, and you can yarn over and pull through, tighten that. Now take your yarn needle and work this loose yarn. You go up and down into that border, and then you go back, do the same, up and down in between those stitches. And now we can go back. So you're kind of going back and forth so that this yarn doesn't come undone as easily. There. I'm going to do one last knot, like so. Cut this off, and this, you would do this with any loose threads that you have any throughout your blanket, if you have any, if you haven't worked them in while you were working on your blanket. I don't have enough space to show you the full blanket, and obviously my hand shakes as I'm filming this, but I just wanted to try and show you some of the pattern and what it looks like. There's that edging. It's a super cozy blanket. It's very long. I know your blanket is going to turn out beautiful. If you have any questions or comments, let me know. Also, I am on Instagram if you want to follow me there. It's @HumbleHus. I would love to see some of your projects. Tag me with your work, and hopefully I can get more projects done. It's just like I said, with a 2-year-old, it is very hard to get things done. But I do appreciate you being here, and I will see you next time. Thank you so much for watching. This is my channel, HumbleHus. Bye!